Joining me now is Chen Chenchen. She's a research fellow at the Institute of Economic Reform and Development for Renmin University of China. I did get to see you on The Heat earlier talking about your research. I found it fascinating about what you've learned about people who live near these Belt and Road projects. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. I think nowadays, because most of the Belt and Road countries in Africa have already signed the MOUs with China to cooperate under the BRI at the macro level. So I hope I can learn more about the situation unfolding on the subnational level. So I adopted geospatial methods to look at what is the attitude of the local Africa if they live closer to the Chinese finance, development finance projects, especially including not just the traditional aid ones, but also the commercial and infrastructure ones. I do find if they do live closer, they feel they can sense stronger improvement of their national economy and their living conditions. But as I emphasized, I have find very diversified differences, because if you look at different projects, you can see that the commercial ones actually exert more influence on the youngsters, and also compared with their male counterparts, the females, they could sense weaker improvement. So I think there are lots of room for our improvement in the future.
And you do see some people who see improvements in their economic conditions who live closer to these projects. It's so interesting to hear that, because you hear the leaders in Africa and Qin Gang saying, you know, we want deepening development, stronger ties, and yet we still hear all of the criticism, the critics saying, you know, these are debt traps. What do you make of all of this?
I think the foreign minister himself has quoted a very interesting statistics from World Bank. For example, 3/4 of Africa's external debt, actually, the holders are the MFIs, the multilateral financial institutions, and the commercial creditors. They should actually play a bigger role in alleviating the debt issue. For Chinese investors and developers in Africa, what I have observed on the ground is that they are now trying to do more subtle risk assessment, especially in the climate finance projects, and they are emphasizing to increase the capacity building of the local African workforce, for example, to facilitate more loans to manufacturing industry rather than purely financing the flows into energy and infrastructure, because manufacturing, they mean more direct source for creating jobs and increasing revenue.
And China put forward some proposals during his trip. What do you make of the overall swing through these African nations by Qin Gang and the proposals put forward?
I think it's quite interesting, because you look at the longer history of China and Africa interaction. Their political ties have been consolidated since the 1950s, but there's such imbalance that the strategists and policy circles scholars have emphasized that we should emphasize the more comprehensive strategic cooperation, but that cooperation partnership is relatively young. It was only proposed officially in 2015, and later we got the eruption of the pandemic. So now this time the 4-point proposal, if you look at the details, it really emphasized not just at the political level, but economic level, how to upgrade and restructure, for example, the investment to emphasize the manufacturing sector. And also culturally, Foreign Minister Qin Gang also emphasized at the different levels, we should re-pick up the tangible, substantive engagement with each other. At my university, Renmin University, in the past 3 years, indeed, lots of scholarships have been suspended for now. And I myself, when I serve as the trainer for the capacity building for local African Union, African officials and business leaders, for the previously we do that on site, but now in the past 3 years, lots of that have been conducted via the online channels. I hope that could be picked up as soon as possible.
All right, Chen Chenchen, thank you so much for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.